This is Mike Dilke with the Relaxback UK show on UK Health Radio, your global real feel-good radio station. On the Relaxback UK show, we explore all kinds of health topics, so keep listening and enjoy the ride. Hi, and thank you for joining me, Mike Dilke, with the Relaxback UK show. This week I have some absolutely fabulous guests for you. First off, Doran Binder. He absolutely loves water like no one else I've ever come across. He's known as the Bearded Water Sommelier and supplies spring water from his pub, the Crag Inn, in the Peak District.
So if we were to do a water tasting now, me and you, I'd blow your mind away in about 30 seconds with how incredible the world of water is.
We cover an awful lot of important stuff, including tea.
Well, every time people come in and they have a cup of tea, every single time people go, well, my tea doesn't taste as good as that at home. What tea bags are they? And I go, it's not the tea bags, it's the water.
Then it's help for adolescents online, particularly girls. And this deals with pretty much everything with Joe Goodall and Jasmine Shembry of Luna.
Go down the wrong hole in social media, you can get served up some really quite negative content, and that really can make you spiral, and especially at the age of teenagers and adolescents, like it's really can be quite damaging. So we've always said we want to be a positive space.
So please do stick around for a great show, and if you're listening on the podcast version, please don't forget to subscribe and like. Thank you.
The station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio. The station that makes you feel good.
Doran Binder is an absolute advocate for water. He loves the stuff. He's known as the Bearded Water Sommelier. I really enjoyed chatting to him, and I started off by asking him, what is a water sommelier and how do you become one?
Mike, when I started this journey, I had no idea either. I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know it existed. And in 2018, I just thought water was water. And then stumbled across Crag Spring Water and the whole story that's happened since then. But what I realised very early on is that everything I'd been told about water all my life was completely incorrect. And, we live in a country where I think we've been scarred by only fools and horses, Peckham Springs, and water's water, mate. And that's how we appreciate, and that's the value we place on water. We give it no appreciation at all. So when I started bottling Crag Spring water early on, and I was getting some unbelievable feedback from experts all around the world who could explain what made the water so special and unique, that's when I realized I needed to learn. I needed to understand what's going on in the world of water, because if I ever walked into my grandparents' house, God bless them, when they were alive with a bottle of water, my grandmother would have ripped my head off for being flash, because there's nothing wrong with tap. Well, actually, she was completely wrong. Well, that's how they viewed it. They just viewed water as water. And that's how I grew up, with no appreciation of water or understanding what the differences were.
Okay, so now you have an appreciation of water because you are a water sommelier. But again, what is that?
So basically what I can do, I spend a lot of my time doing water tastings with people who approach me, or restaurants, hotels, and just going through waters and explaining the differences. It's a basic human right. This should be taught in schools. So understanding the difference between what comes out of your tap and understanding the difference between, in the UK, natural, mineral and spring water. And they are completely separate markets. You cannot confuse the two. Tap water is processed, municipal, man-made laboratory water. Different sources, filtered by man, and then chemicals are added to the water to make it safe for consumption. Processed sausage factory water comes out of your tap, which is why it smells of chlorine and tastes like a swimming pool. Natural, mineral and spring water are naturally occurring water, bottled at the source, controlled and regulated by trading standards and the local environmental health agency.
Before we get into all that, how do you become a sommelier? So look,
you have to study. Sorry, you study.
Yeah, so
you study.
How long does it take? What do you study? Chemistry?
Sorry.
What,
Sorry.
You know,
okay, so there are a few different organisations globally that organise this. One of them is an organisation called the Fine Water Society, and they're based in the United States. And it's Martin Rees and a guy called Dr. Michael Masher who set this up. And they run the Fine Water Society and the Fine Water Academy. So when I started bottling 2018, I reached out to them, and they were incredibly helpful to me.
So how long does it take to become a sommelier? Like, could I come on if it's attend an afternoon course somewhere and then I'm one?
No. It'll take you probably about 6 months, and it's online assessments, all done through the Fine Water Society. So with technology today, it's all mainly assignments and tests online.
And what are the topics you study
within the course?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So the source of the water, different sources of natural water, the differences between waters, TDS, total dissolved solids, minerality composition, food pairing, food matching, food contrasting, writing water menus for restaurants.
So looking at taste. So you must get pretty heavily into chemistry and stuff like that.
No, because it's more of the minerality. So because it's organically, so what happens is as natural water filters through geology, it's picking up the minerality of that geology, which is why these 60 waters behind me are all different in taste and mouthfeel, because it's a unique fingerprint.
Okay, so water going through rocks and picking up different minerals, I'd argue, is pretty chemical. But anyway, never mind. But that's essentially the process. Right, so now you've done all that. You were launching into the difference between tap water and mineral water. So apart from the price, because actually I read somewhere that bottled water can be about as much as petrol for the same amount. But apart from price, what's the difference between tap water and mineral water?
Okay, so basically it's exactly the same as processed food and organic food. That's how you need to view it in a simplistic term. So organic food is normally dearer than processed food, and that's exactly the same thing in the world of water. So what you're paying for, you get what you pay for. So if you're putting premium fuel in your car, there is a difference to the way the engine runs. Now, the human body depends on water. We can live for 3 months without eating food, but 3 days without water, and we are toast. So the impact of the quality of the water has on the human body is absolutely critical. So if we start with TDS, that's the main driver with naturally occurring waters. So distilled water, total dissolved solids. So distilled water is H2O, zero minerality in it. And the way they measure it is they take a litre of the water, they evaporate it, and the white powder left at the end is the minerality composition of that water. So distilled water, great for your car battery because there's no minerality in the water, so you don't get any corrosion on the connection points, which is why it's great for electrical appliances. But it's corrosive for the human body. So distilled water, H2O, TDS, zero, nothing in it. The waters behind me range from, this is a naturally occurring water from Italy. It's a glacier water, TDS 14, extremely low in minerality because the water is a chunk of ice that's melting, and they've built a bottling plant at the bottom of the glacier. They're bottling it as it comes out. As it's melting, it's going straight in the bottle. So extremely low TDS. Now, seawater is 30 to 40,000 TDS. And the highest
40,000 what?
TDS.
So that's total
dissolved solids. So if you took a litre of seawater,
what's the unit of that? It must have a unit. Total dissolved solids if you're quoting figures, they
milligrams per litre. Yeah, milligrams per litre.
Milligrams
TDS
per litre,
is
right,
milligrams per litre. Everything is in milligrams per litre, unless it's trace. If it's trace, then obviously it's a lot lower. So Donut MG from Slovakia, naturally occurring water, again, TDS 15,000. So the difference between 15,000 and 14 is chalk and cheese. It's black and white. You cannot confuse the two. Completely different.
I would have thought that the big difference would be what those minerals are. You know, you're talking about solids.
Correct.
What are those solids?
So mainly it's sodium, calcium, magnesium. They're the main bicarbonate. They're the main minerality ingredients in naturally occurring water. But there are traces and pages and pages of trace minerality in these waters, depending on what the geology is that the water's filtering through.
Okay. And so those minerals, that you know, whether they're traces or whether you can boil it all down and see a pile of it at the end, they make a difference in the taste.
The taste, the mouthfeel, the flavour, the sensation, everything. So if we were to do a water tasting now, me and you, I'd blow your mind away in about 30 seconds with how incredible the world of water is. But it's nothing we hear about in the UK. I didn't even know this was a thing. So this is where my passion comes from, because suddenly I stumble across a spring in 2018 and discover that water is not water, which is the opposite of everything I've been told my whole life.
So you're talking about different mineral waters, and actually you touched on it. You said that one is from the bottom of a glacier. If it comes from a deep aquifer and bubbles up in a spring, that sort of thing, what kind of differences do you find?
Fantastic. Brilliant question, mate. So Vichy Catalan, TDS 3052, deep underground aquifer, pressurized natural carbonation, comes out of the source sparkling. Okay, they don't do a still version, it's sparkling, because that's how the source is. Now, that to me, when I found that out, it blew me away. Naturally occurring sparkling water. I'll give you another one. Chateaudun 1650 from France. Has been bottled at the source since 1650, TDS 1800. Again, natural carbonation. This water's been drunk for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Roman soldiers, Vatican, monarchs, popes. The elites have known about the importance of quality water for hundreds of years, and yet we're expected to just think water's water, mate, and that it smells and tastes of chlorine. It's patronizing, and it's time we elevated and understood the importance of naturally occurring water on the human body. Or just water generally. Let
me just ask you a question which might make you squirm, actually. I don't know.
Go for it. I love it. The harder, the better. Go for it.
Well, I'm not sure it's hard, but I've got one of those machines that puts CO2 into my tap water. So I get fizzy water out of that. And I have to say, I really like it. And I'm sure it's CO2. And I'm quite sure that what makes that water you just showed to me fizzy is CO2 as well. So correct. I've got to say, what's the difference?
So what you're drinking at home, your carbonated tap water, is sausage water, man-made water, carbonated. And when it's carbonated, it helps with the smell of chlorine, okay? Because you're putting bubbles in it, and the smell and the taste of chlorine evaporates through that process. So it helps with the taste. But what's the difference? One's processed and one's natural and organic.
Yeah, I mean, I do get the fact that water from the tap is different, but I really don't think water from the tap is a bad thing. I mean, it's a massive public health wonderment, and the fact that there's chlorine in it, well, actually, that does help an awful lot of people. So it's not necessarily a bad thing; it's just a different thing.
If you can drink tap water, and if you enjoy and you can drink it, fantastic. That's the best water for you. So when people say to me, what's the best water in the world? The best water for you is the water that you can drink and you like. And if you're drinking minimum 2 litres a day of it, fantastic. I have concerns with tap water. Okay, there are other concerns with tap water. All you've got to do is Google drugs in water. So there are concerns about what's happening with hormones, HRT, contraceptive pill, antibiotics. How much of that is being filtered out? How much of that is working its way back into the water system? So when the Environment Agency report that crayfish are changing sex midlife due to higher estrogen levels in water, is that something we should be aware of? Now, for me, that's a concern.
Yeah. Well, certainly there's no question there are other concerns. So I think the whole water purification process, I mean, it was designed many years ago, frankly, to deal with
Mike, what hasn't helped as well is that we privatized it. When we privatized our water companies in 1989, they were debt free. Since then, they've accumulated £79 billion worth of debt and paid out £60 billion in dividends. Now, Scotland and Wales didn't follow our example. They're still owned by Scotland and Wales. But we've sold our water companies off, and the people that own these water companies, if you look up the list of the people that own them, it's pretty shocking. So yeah, I'm with you, but in my opinion, we need to be controlling our own water supply with a regulator that is in our interest, looking out for us and not them.
I have to say, in a previous life, I'm a chartered civil engineer, so I spent some time studying this sort of thing, and I'm definitely on board with an awful lot of this, and there's a lot about water that does worry me as well. But having said that, I don't invest in mineral water at the moment. So
don't forget, in the UK, you keep on saying mineral water, but in the UK, natural, mineral and spring have the same meaning. They are controlled words. So it doesn't matter which one of those words it says. But if you see a bottle of water that doesn't say natural, mineral or spring, so here's a perfect example. Lucozade Fit Water, purified water. Purified water means filtered tap. Now that is what I spend a lot of my life calling out. Waters that are a con, and the whole bottled water industry in the UK is smoke and mirrors. There are people who are following regulations and doing the right thing, and there are people who aren't. And that's what I need to call out, because people need to be aware. If you're going to be buying purified water, aka filtered tap, you might as well do it at home. It's miles cheaper than buying the Lucozade rubbish. And it's not just Lucozade. There's loads of them doing it. So if it doesn't say natural mineral and spring, you're wasting your money. You might as well just be drinking tap.
You're buying tap water.
Well, you could be. You could be buying anything. Another example, okay? It's not just Lucozade. Marks and Spencer's, mountain water. Mountain water isn't a controlled word. It could be anything legally. It could be anything. So this is rife in the industry, and this is something now that my passion for is absolutely critical, because people need to understand I'm organic vegetarian, gluten-free. When I go food shopping, I have an aisle of organic gluten-free food. I know what I'm buying, but when I go to the water aisle, Mike, I've got crap mixed with organic, authentic stuff, and people don't know. So right. This is the message number one: natural mineral and spring. If it doesn't say it, don't buy it.
Okay, no, this right. I hadn't realised any of this. This is potentially, well, not potentially. This is very important.
Thank you.
Let me ask you one even more important question: which is best when you make a cup of tea?
Why? Okay. Now we're a pub, believe it or not. Even the pub isn't barely open because we're in the middle of nowhere. Well, every time people come in and they have a cup of tea, every single time people go, well, my tea doesn't taste as good as that at home. What tea bags are they? And I go, it's not the tea bags, it's the water. But we become so conditioned. We are so gullible and we are so conditionable that we just want to do the right thing. We just want to be good. But we don't question things anymore. We just accept. But actually, questioning the quality of the water that we're drinking is a basic human right, because our body depends on it. We are no different to plants. A plant will survive dehydrated. The human body will do the same thing. We will survive dehydrated. But as soon as we rehydrate, oh my God, it's a performance-enhancing drug. Now, when you find a beautiful water that you can drink, what you'll notice is that you'll be eating less food. So I doubled my water intake January last year after somebody sent me a book called The Drinking Water Cure. And I read it in a day, and I'm a terrible reader normally, but I read this book in a day and I couldn't put it down. And it made me realize that I'm going to experiment from the next day and double my water intake from 2 litres to 4 litres to see what would happen to my body. And oh my God, it's unbelievable. One of the most amazing benefits is that I've been on 1 meal a day since I've been on 4 litres a day of water, which has meant I've lost 10 kilos without trying, without any effort at all. I'm in the best shape of my life. I've always been a fitness fanatic anyway, but I'm on 1 meal a day. And what we need to understand is that we are trained overeaters from birth. And we need to stop eating so much food, especially the processed crap, and start drinking good quality water, especially for children. So when I'm doing water tastings with families, kids pick up on the taste and the sensation of water because their taste buds are so sensitive. Now, if we're giving our children chlorinated tap water, we're going to put them off water. If we're giving our children chlorinated tap water and putting cordial in it, we're teaching our children that water is a drink not worthy of being drunk in its own right. But water is in a league of its own. Water is the holy grail. We have 0 calories, 0 artificial sweeteners, no dairy, no caffeine, no nothing. Just goodness for the human body. So it means it can't be compared to any other drink on the planet because we depend on it. We're made of it. Sorry, I'll take a breath there.
Yeah, sorry, you stunned me into silence. Okay, so what is really coming across is that this is not just a notion or an interest or a hobby. This has become
my
your
life.
For better or for worse, and you kind of came across this by accident, practically.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, certainly you've opened my eyes to some quite important things. Things that.
Thank you.
Well, certainly this thing about the labels on water.
Everyone should know this. Everybody should know this.
Some things that I had kind of suspected for a while, not really looked at about tap water, but I'm still big into tap water. I do believe tap water is a good thing in that it keeps us.
I agree. I'm with you. I'm with you. But having said that,
there's other things going on in the background, privatisation of water companies, etc., which I think we need to talk a bit more about on this show. In fact, I would really like to invite you back on to talk about, because I've got a suspicion you are a lot more well-read, know more about it than me. I might do a little more digging, a bit of homework, and get you back on. I think that could be really quite
I'd
interesting.
love you to. But listen, there's a couple of books, Mike, you need to read, because this isn't my opinion, all right? This is based... So Dr. Batman Jalid, you can get this book on Amazon. It's Your Body's Many Cries for Water. Don't treat thirst with medication. And that's what we're doing. We're living in a world, okay, and this is one of the big issue, in my opinion. We live in a world where, if we're being honest, there's far more profit in an unhealthy population than a healthy population. That's the sad reality of it. People make money out of our bad health. The cheapest, easiest health hack for any human being on this planet is just increase your water intake immediately. Forget about eating so much blimmin' food. We don't need it, but we're trained overeaters from birth, and we have out-of-control chimps. I don't know if you've read The Chimp Paradox, written by Professor Steve Peters.
No, I haven't.
You know, it's a brilliant book. But basically, we are trained overeaters with out-of-control chimps, and we don't understand. We are hooked on processed, highly processed, addictive food that's making us unhealthy.
That much is true. Yeah, I'm with you there. Processed food causes an awful lot of problems. And
the people that own these processed food companies are usually connected to the healthcare side of the debate afterwards, which is scary.
Yeah. Okay. So there's an awful lot to unpick there.
Sorry, I could talk for hours about this, by the way. Absolute hours.
No, it's interesting.
Hours.
Let's just bring it back to the water and kind of what you're talking about just now, specifically, before we went off on some very interesting tangents that I want to come back to. But if people are listening to this and thinking, oh, all right, water, I'd like to find out a bit more. You've mentioned a couple of books, but are there any sources that people can kind of quickly go to and get a bit more info?
Yeah, my TikTok page, Bearded Water Sommelier. I've got about 800 posts, and all I talk about is water, the impact of water, the differences between waters, and that's what I'll be doing for the rest of my life. So, yeah, that's a great place to start. Go on my TikTok page and start from the bottom and work your way up, and by the end of it, you'll be a sommelier. You'll understand what's going on.
All right, brilliant. Look, Doran, thank you very much indeed for chatting. Absolutely fascinating. I must admit, I was thinking, I've got to talk to the water guy. That's going to be dull. But anything but that. Far from it.
Mate, listen, I'm the one that makes water sexy in the UK. That's my job. Make water sexy, to make it appealing, and so that people understand that it cannot be compared to any other beverage on the planet, because there is no other beverage that compares to water, because it's what we're made of. Now, if that doesn't get me passionate or get other people passionate, because this is 2 and 2, this is common sense, and we should be learning this in school. The importance of quality water on the human body, or even tap water. If you can drink it, go for it. Get it in you. So important.
Doran, many thanks indeed for chatting.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
Joe Goodall and Jasmine Shembri are the co-founders of the app Luna. I started off by asking them, what is it? What's it all about?
Luna is the UK's first health and wellbeing app for teenagers, primarily menstruators aged 11 to 17. We're a free app. We literally launched mid-November, so we're also pretty new. And on our app, users can basically read and watch content created by our medical community on all things to do with adolescence. So things like periods, hormones, skincare, body image, friendships, the works. They can ask anonymous questions and get an expert-backed response. They can access discount codes to cool brands in the sort of hair space, period space, or in the skincare space. And then last but not least, we've got our very simple period and emotion tracker, which basically enables teens to manage their emotions and start tracking their emotions and periods once they start it. So we're basically everything they need to do, and everything they need to get in terms of information and support throughout adolescence. So that's us.
Okay. So it sounds like it is mainly aimed at girls, but there are quite a few things in your list there which would be relevant to boys as well. Are they invited?
They are very much invited. In fact, as our parents, as is anyone, to be honest, they might just go on there and find some content that may not be particularly relevant to them. But we've definitely noticed there are definitely some boys on there asking questions and giving us feedback. So perhaps there's another opportunity in the future to launch a Luno specifically for boys and something that supports them in a more tailored way.
Okay. So what made you want to start this?
Yeah, it's a good question because neither of us are from a medical background either. So Jazz and I actually met back in 2020 when we went back to university to do our MBA course. And as part of that course, there was a project where it's called the Entrepreneurship Project, and it was kind of The Apprentice meets Dragon's Den. So over the course of about 10
Sounds
weeks.
a bit terrifying.
Yeah, it was. And it was one of those sort of, everyone runs around like a headless chicken a bit for sort of 10 weeks, and you form a team. So there was 5 women in our team, and we, you had to come up with a concept, write the pitch, and then at the end of the term, pitch it to a real panel of investors who would then say, yeah, great idea, or not really. And so for us, we were discussing as sort of women in our late 20s and early 30s, we were discussing one night things that we could do for this coursework. But then also we kind of sort of veered off topic, and we're talking a bit more about either female health issues that we were having or our friends were having. Perhaps they were trying for babies and, they were being diagnosed with polycystic ovaries, endometriosis. There was like topics that, we just weren't really that informed about as women in our late 20s and 30s. And we were all quite shocked that, between the 5 of us, there were some things that we just never even heard about and we'd never been taught about really.
Right.
And so the discussion kind of led to, well, did we get taught about this in school? No, not really. Like it was just sort of very light touch. And that basically led us to go back to some schools and speak to teenagers today and say, where do you get your information about health and well-being and your bodies, etc. from? And I think Jazz and I probably say we're quite lucky to have grown up in a generation that wasn't born with smartphones in their hands. And, we didn't have Instagram or TikTok, when we were adolescents like they do today. And it turned out that basically they rated the sort of health education that they received in schools about 3 out of 10. And we ran this with, we spoke to over 1,000 teens in this survey. So it was pretty shocking, the sort of statistics we were getting back. And yeah, basically they sort of said, well, instead of, asking parents or teachers or doctors, we go online and we go on TikTok and we go on there and find out about information. So, if you type in something like period hacks on TikTok, there's just some crazy videos that come up that tell teenagers they can stop their period by taking a shot of lime juice, salt and tagine powder. And there's videos on there that say that they can lose 8 ounces if they down like 6 pints of salt water, and just crazy, ridiculous videos on there that these teenagers are watching and consuming on a daily basis.
So there was a real problem, or there is a real problem with misinformation and teenagers getting crazy ideas from the internet.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And when it's like topics like your health and well-being, obviously it's really, really important to learn about that, once these changes start happening to you, but learn about it from credible resources, really. Sure. And so, yeah, that's kind of what led us really to start building the app. And we did it as this project, but then it snowballed. And then once we'd finished our course and we left university, we decided to take it full time. So,
right. Well, you definitely kind of proved going through this process that there's a need for it, because, well, so I'm a bit older than you. I'm 56, and I'm thinking back to my school days, and health education, sex education, etc., was pretty useless.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, hasn't really moved on very much, and in some ways might have got worse with the introduction of the internet and TikTok and all this stuff. So yeah, so definitely a need. Something you said, look, when you were doing this MBA, you had to make a pitch and show how worthwhile it was, and that there was a need and lots of customers and all this kind of wording, particularly pitch, makes me think of this is a big way to make money. It doesn't seem, the two don't quite sit together to me.
It's a good point. But in fact, I think there is actually a strong argument for, impact and profits coming together. And I think we're seeing lots more venture capital in the space, with investors wanting to back mission-led businesses, particularly across the ESG space. So whether that's sort of, environmental, social or governance or stuff. So, I think actually on the flip, there is an argument for both of those things coming together. And that's actually only something we're going to see more of in the next few years, especially as, Gen Z and Gen Alpha are all for working for businesses which have a purpose and wanting to do more in this space. So, I think there is actually an argument for both things coming together, and hopefully you'll be one of those companies that can prove exactly that.
All right. So, I mean, it is free to use, isn't it? Anyone can log on and use it.
Absolutely. Yeah, at the moment it's free to use. We don't envision a time where it would be 100% subscription, but we are starting to see very early elements of what features are very sticky, and where we might be able to monetize some different types of features. So looking towards potentially a premium model. So that's when everybody has a basic level of free access, and if somebody wants extra content or extra advice, they'd have to pay for it.
Sure.
But if you get on, it's free.
Well, my next question kind of stems from that, really. So if I'm just, occasionally I go running, okay, so I might do a Google search about running shoes and try and buy some running shoes. And if I do that, I then get lots of ads for running shoes or running related stuff. So I've got a teenage daughter, she's 18. So if my daughter was to log into this site and then start using it, I was thinking, all right, so what kind of adverts is she gonna get?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we're not envisaging ads as such. So we don't want to have those kind of sort of running adverts, banners and stuff saying, buy these shoes because you've searched for shoes. We are looking, obviously, with the discounts that we can offer in app. They are of products that we value and also have the same values as us, and we relate to, and we think they'll be useful for teenagers. So teenage skin products, period products, which they would already be buying, but we would only obviously promote the discount code, so actually getting them money off. And then the other thing that we're looking into is sort of sponsored content. So we want to partner with brands who want to offer valuable content to our audience. So whether that's they want to partner on a video or an article about skincare and top tips to look after your skin or exercise and, nutrition, topics like that, then we would welcome those on the platform. Again, obviously, if they've been vetted by us as well. But there won't be a kind of banner ads, shall we say, because we think that obviously decreases from the whole user experience as well. And that's
is it
not
actually,
what...
I don't really know about making these things, but as a maker of an app, can you control the ads that pop up?
Oh yeah, completely, 100%. Yeah. So yeah, we have chosen that you won't see an ad as such on the platform. If you go on now, we can change that if we want, but that's not what we plan to do.
Right. Okay. Is one of the things that the app suggests? So say if a teenager or a girl or a boy asks a question or starts searching about, I don't know, could be anything, could be something that they find slightly embarrassing or slightly worrying. Does the app say, hang on a moment, have you actually tried talking to your parents about this?
Yeah, it definitely does, Mike. And actually, we give tips on how to talk to parents about difficult conversations. So we get quite a lot of questions in saying, I feel this, but I don't know how to approach it with my parents. And so we'll share some tips on how to do it. So yes, we are definitely not here to replace conversations with parents or with schools or with doctors. If anything, we're trying to encourage those conversations, but also mitigate any nervousness or worries that might come with it.
Sure. No, I think that's quite important, because you've just kind of earlier on we were saying how some of these problems can get perpetuated or even enlarged by going online.
Yeah, definitely.
Because of misinformation. So a way to stop that is to, go and talk to mum. 9 times out of 10, anyway.
Definitely. And I think on the flip, we have actually also had some parents reach out to us and say, can you support me with having these conversations, with my teenagers? So yeah, I do think, we're hopefully trying to bridge a gap if there is one at all. So we're trying to be helpful, and yeah, not a replacement tool, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, that's interesting that you've had parents join in as well.
Yeah, I guess today you're exposed to so many more things online. I'm sure they're being faced with questions which they've maybe never even heard of, so might not even have the answers themselves. So I can totally understand why they might be messaging us or trying to get questions answered by our doctors instead.
Yeah. And do you kind of vet people that log on? Like, can you actually confirm that, yes, okay, this is a parent, or yes, this is a 16-year-old girl?
No, in the sense, we don't actually take that much personal information from people. So we ask, for their pronouns, but they don't have to give them if they don't want to. And same with their age. They don't have to give that if they don't want to. But there is nowhere on the platform that is kind of open for conversation or chat. So it's not like we have an open platform and you could have sort of really random people logging on and then giving their opinions and chatting. It's very much your personal space, your closed space. And so if you ask a question, it is completely anonymous.
Right.
We don't even know who it's come from. So when it comes to us, it just literally lands in the inbox as kind of the question with no personal details attached. And we also do say, when people are submitting a question, if you leave us any personal information like your name or where you live or anything like that, then we won't answer the question, because we want to keep it anonymous, and we want people to feel that that we're not sharing any information with anyone. So it does mean that, we can have parents come on and ask questions. And sometimes they'll say in the question, like, oh, I'm a parent of a teen and I want to ask this. Or I guess sometimes they might just pose as a teenager and ask the question that they wanted to ask.
Yeah, okay. No, I'm sure that will put a lot of listeners' minds at rest, actually, because, you hear all sorts of awful things about people hanging out in different places in the internet. Oh, good.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, and
that's
definitely steer away from that. Steer away from that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the agony aunt part of it, that sounds like it might almost be the most useful part. Is that bit well used by teenagers?
Definitely. It's definitely one of the most popular features. I think it makes young people feel heard. It makes them feel less worried or anxious, or it might give them that final nudge to finally have a conversation with their parents, like you mentioned before, or go to their doctor. So yeah, that's very, very popular. But then we also sort of feed them other bits of content based on the questions they've asked, or we might recommend they start logging their emotions or their skin or their pain or whatever. So it all does tie together quite nicely in terms of the feature set.
So how does it actually work? So if my daughter, was to log into this thing and ask a question about, I don't know, you've mentioned skincare. That's a fairly innocuous subject, so I'll run with that one. What happens then? Like, have you got a whole bank of skincare experts that answer these questions, or is it you two staying up to the small hours of the morning trying to answer all these things?
It's absolutely not us, is it, Joe? We
No.
would feed ignore the knowledge. So as Joe said, we're not medical. We have an amazing community of medics who sit behind us. So it's currently about 20 young women who cut across dermatology, GP, women's health, who are all really passionate about making sure the next generation of women get better access to health and support than what we got ultimately. All questions do come through Luna first and foremost. So we do the first set of triage to make sure that we've not received any personal information about the user, nor is it a diagnostic question. So if we do get anything like that is, needs to go to A&E or, accident and emergency or whatever, we can't answer those kind of questions. We only answer very agony aunt style things, or very yes or no or factual based questions. So Luna does the first arm of triage. We then farm it out to our medical community. It will then get looked again with somebody from our medical community, and then it all comes back via Luna to do a final check, and then we push it out. So yes, whilst we aren't the ones answering the questions, Luna does have high involvement in protecting our users, but also making sure that every question meets our standards basically. And then once they've got that answer back, like I said before, we do push them sort of tailored content. So if it was a skincare question, perhaps about combination skin, we might then recommend a series of articles or videos, and hopefully discount codes in the future when we build that section out, about combination skin as well.
Okay, it sounds like you've been very fortunate getting 20 medics, 20 people in the medical community that have time on their hands to answer these questions, considering the current situation with the NHS and how busy doctors seem to be just now.
Definitely. To be honest, we were quite surprised as well. And we actually, when we started, we didn't even know how to go about finding doctors.
No, I wouldn't know how to start.
No, we didn't either. However, it seems that many doctors or GPs are interested in the tech space and are looking for work, I guess, side of desk when they are out of office. And so actually we had a lot of applications, didn't we, Joe, for our roles, and we still continue to receive them now, but we pay all of our medical community, and obviously we can't pay more than what we've got on our books at the moment. So I think actually what we've seen is a demand in the field for more work in the tech space, and people wanting more opportunities to do stuff alongside their day-to-day roles.
Okay, oh, that's interesting. Excellent. All right, so that you had at the time of asking, there was plenty of resource to find.
Yes, I think we just didn't know how to go about it, but we unlocked that LinkedIn is a great place, and Twitter as well. So we had a couple of friends who were medics who were happy to put shout outs for us.
Right.
And Twitter really got the ball rolling there as well.
Yeah. So how popular is it so far? How long has it been going for? And I don't know, how many questions have you had in the agony aunt section?
So we officially launched on the app stores in mid-November last year, and we are around at the moment sort of 4,000 downloads. So pretty popular, and it's growing every day, which is amazing. And I think we've had over 1,000 questions in so far. So the agony aunt section is, like you say, really quite popular, and one of our most used features.
Right. Do you call it agony aunt, or am I just showing my age?
No, it's called Ask Luna, but it very much is the agony aunt. So it's the kind of one that you would, when we were teenagers, you would write into the magazines, and then your answer might get sort of posted and printed in the magazine. So that's what kind of I remember it as. But it's a digital agony aunt, definitely.
No, I mean, I have to say that the whole thing does sound like a very useful thing to have, and I do like the fact that, and you said that, like, first of all, it suggests that the young people talk to family if they can. So I think that's a very positive thing.
Yeah, 100%. And we've said all along that we want Luna to be a positive space. So what we've said before about social media, if you go down the wrong hole in social media, you can get served up some really quite negative content, and that really can make you spiral. And especially at the age, of teenagers and adolescents, like it's really can be quite damaging. So we've always said we want to be a positive space. We want to promote positivity, and just like you say, speaking to family, getting them involved in sort of your growing up journey, as it were, and adolescence, and hopefully helping, like Jazz said, to kind of bridge that gap, if there are any, not necessarily every family, but between parents and their teenagers.
Yeah, excellent. All right. Well, it does sound like a useful thing. So if people are listening to this, so not only teenagers, maybe parents as well, and they're thinking, okay, this might be useful for me, how can people find it?
Yeah, so they can, first port of call is probably the App Store. So we're both in the Apple and Google Play Store, and you just type in We Are Luna, and we should be the first one there. It's a nice yellow logo. You can also check out our website, which is also www.weareluna.app, also on social media. So any teenagers listening, it's probably TikTok for them, and Instagram as well, but all the same, We Are Luna app.
Excellent. All right, Joe and Jasmine, thank you very much indeed for chatting. I think people will find that useful.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much to my guests on this week's show, and they were Doran Binder, the Bearded Water Sommelier, Joe Goodall and Jasmine Shembry, the founders of the Luna app, and of course, thank you to you for listening, and please do have a healthy week. Till next week.
That was the Relaxback UK show with me, Mike Dilke. Thank you for listening, and please do join us again next time.